Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to IMPW 2024 webinar series. I wish you all very happy IMPW 2024. This is a webinar number 4. I am Professor Arun Chougule, Chair of the ETC IOMP and Chairman of the IOMP Accreditation Board. Today's topic is very important because we all medical physicists are health profession, and in addition to the academic master's program, we need to undergo at least 2 years residency program, which is structured clinical training program. And we have today Ricardo Ruggeri from the Argentina, who will be talking about development and implementation of structured clinical training programs for medical physicists in Latin America, a comprehensive and practical review from the experience of the Integral Oncology Center of Leben, Salud in Patagonia, Argentina. This is the one of the first residency program which is accredited by the IOMP. Not only the residency program, also the medical physics education master's program is accredited, and he has developed a very sturdy, very structured clinical training program for a residency in radiation oncology physics, the nuclear medicine physics, and radiodiagnosis physics and all. Ricardo Ruggeri is a technical director of oncology at Centro Oncologico Integral of Leben Salud, and he is the chief of the medical physics services of Leben Salud, and he is a director of the residency in medical physics, also expert for IAEA and a leading medical physicist in Argentina. With the initiation and the first accreditation of this medical physics residency program in Latin America, IOMP accreditation has become very popular. And after that, Venezuela, another residency program has been accredited by IOMP, and few more masters in medical physics program, they will be accredited soon. And this is very important because across the world, to be a medical physicist as a health professional, the program which you are undergoing must be accredited, and the IOMP does accredit the medical physics education program, residency program. All the details are available on the IOMP website under accreditation. Any further details you need, you can contact me. With this short introduction, without taking much more time, wishing you all the very happy IMPW 2024. Thanking Professor John Damelicus, President IOMP, for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. I welcome Ricardo Ruggeri for giving his talk on a very, very important and pertinent topic of establishing the residency program, structured residency program, one of the best program in Latin America. So the stage is yours, Ricardo Ruggeri, and I request Magdalena to start his, thank you.
Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Ricardo Ruggeri, the Director and Head of Medical Physics at the Centro Oncológico Integral of Leben Salud in the Argentine Patagonia. Today's talk will focus on the development and implementation of structured supervised clinical training programs for medical physicists in Latin America, and it will provide a comprehensive and practical review based on the experience of the Centro Oncológico Integral of Leben Salud in Patagonia, Argentina. My challenge today is to introduce a new concept based on our experience at COI with the implementation of the first medical physics residency accredited by IOMP, as well as our collaboration with other institutions in Latin America. Additionally, we will conduct a review of various documents from the IAEA and explore implementation options for a structured supervised clinical training programs that align with the organization's recommendations. Next, I will present the objectives. To review useful bibliography for the implementation of a supervisor clinic training program. To analyze recommendations to build a structured supervisor clinic training program, SCTP, harmonized with ALFIN guidelines and the IAEA and IOMP recommendations. To show recommended tools to start with an implementation of a structured supervisor clinic training program with the reality of your institution and or your country. To understand the training, evaluation, and follow-up by competencies, according to the recommendations of the Guidelines for Academic Education and Clinical Training for Medical Physicists in Latin America. And the topics we're not going to deal with: regulatory situations in each country and academic programs. Let's start with the pillars. The document Human Health Report number 1 from the IAEA, drafted in 2010, was one of the organization's first documents to address the medical physicists and the criteria and recommendations for their academic training, clinical training, and certification in Latin America, where the possibility and reality of unifying diagnostic radiology with nuclear medicine were formulated. Subsequently, the IAEA published in 2013 the Human Health Series number 25 on the roles and responsibilities and education and training requirements for clinically qualified medical physicists, where formatted recommendations were made with a broader scope. Here we see the summary figure of document number 25 on recommendation on minimum requirements for the academic education and clinical training of a clinically qualified medical physicist, where we will focus on the dashed line box regarding accredited programs. Postgraduate programs in medical physics typically last between 1 to 3 years. Supervised clinical training, residency, typically lasts between 2 to 3 years. If we create a summary table, we can see that between academic education and supervised clinical training, the student will take between 3 to 6 years to complete the program, depending on the discipline-specific curriculum. We can see here that a clinically qualified medical physicist for one discipline requires a minimum of 3 years of training. And a comprehensive medical physicist with knowledge in all disciplines of medical physics starts from a minimum of 7 years to a maximum of 12 years, always considering a sequential type of training. So, we will focus on achieving the training of a clinically qualified medical physicist in the shortest time possible. And for that, we will see which documents from the IAEA can help us to implement it. We can cite, for example, the document from the training course series on clinical training of medical physicists, specializing in radiotherapy, diagnostic radiology, and nuclear medicine. Returning to the document number 25, going back to the box regarding the recommendation on minimum requirements for the academic education and clinical training of a clinically qualified medical physics, for the postgraduate program in medical physics, we can use as a reference the document TCS 56 on postgraduate medical physicist academic programs, which is endorsed by the International Organization for Medical Physics, IOMP. And for the supervised clinical training residency, we can use the previously mentioned documents as reference. With the combination of all these documents, we have the necessary reference to implement a comprehensive training program, academic and training, for medical physicists that can be accredited. For example, we have the document TCS 74 on audit methodology for medical physics clinical training programs, which serves as a reference for undergoing an audit of the structure supervised clinical training program. With that, always consider the recommended timeline IAEA. Unlike Homer, we have several questions about how to start, such as, I don't have 3 to 6 years, and I don't have all the necessary resources to meet all the guidelines. Then, from where do I start? For this purpose, 2 documents were writing that can be followed as reference: the academic and clinical training program and portfolios for the regional training in medical physics for AFRA members, and the guideline for academic training and clinical training for medical physicists in Latin America. It is important to know that these 2 documents are harmonized with the previously mentioned IAEA documents, but reduce the competencies to be taught, achieve a 1-year training instead of the 2 to 3 years suggested in document number 25. So, let's look at the first step we need to consider. Here say paso uno, that is step 1, that is analyze the resource available to me. Step 2, analyze quality management, quality assurance, and quality control programs. Step 3, define the competencies to be acquired. Step 4, setting up to the organizational structure. So, let's start with step 1, where we ask ourselves, what resource do I need? First, we need human resource, such as medical physicists who will act as supervisor, as well as doctors and technicians who will collaborate with clinical process knowledge. Second, we will need infrastructure where the student will develop their learning in a clinical environment. Infrastructure involves not only the building, but also available technology, both medical equipment and software. For example, images, post-processing, treatment planners, etc. And last but not least, financial resource, as implementing a training program involves cost of payment to students, teachers, etc. Administrators typically see this as an outlay, but it's important to know how to demonstrate the return on investment, such as having highly trained human resource that will help optimize service, increasing not only the quality of diagnosis and treatment provided, but also productivity. Another aspect to consider is the type of institution one operates within, particularly in the context of radiotherapy. It's essential to tailor the training program to suit the institution's capabilities and the project's development. For instance, the institution might only offer radiotherapy service without imaging facilities. Alternatively, it could rely on an outsourced imaging service. And on the other hand, it might provide a comprehensive imaging diagnostic service that seamlessly integrates diagnosis and treatment. In such case, it's paramount to prioritize the training of comprehensive medical physicists. This is especially important given the increasing prevalence of hybrid diagnostic and treatment equipment, such as those found in nuclear medicine, including hybrid technologies like convincity in the LINAC and MRI with LINAC. To start, it's important to define the SWOT, which are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of my resource and structure, such as infrastructure, human resource, equipment, agreement with other institutions, a university, for example, and what I need to achieve national and international accreditations. With all this, I can define the scope of my structured supervisor clinic training program. To define the scope of my clinical training program, I must determine the level I currently possess, which is related to what I can offer at this moment. For example, for radiotherapy, I may offer external beam radiotherapy and brachytherapy, for example, 3D, and within external beam radiotherapy, I can perform techniques such as radiosurgery and or SBRT, and in brachytherapy, IGAVT. So, if I only have external beam radiotherapy with techniques like 3D, I can define it as a level 1 or basic. If I have external beam radiotherapy with BMAT, IGRT, and 3D brachytherapy, I can define it as an intermediate or level 2. Lastly, with special techniques, I can define it as an advanced level or level 3. Remember, this is an example of kind of level. But these levels are self-constructed. One may currently be at a level 1, but at other time, one can progress in the level of treatments offered, and consequently, the clinical training program offered will also grow. The next step is to define resources and competencies in topics that are cross-cutting at any level of competence I can offer, but in line with process. For example, quality assurance is important at all levels, such as quality control in imaging acquisition and treatment, and the management of responsibility from both operational and hierarchical perspective. This brings us to step 2, which involves quality programs and their importance. Let's give a brief overview and see how they articulate with the clinical training program. So, we can define quality assurance as the activity that evaluate and ensure the quality of the process by which a product is prepared, and quality control as activity that help ensure product quality by identify defects in the finished product. We can see that these activities have something in common, but quality assurance focuses on the process, while quality control focuses on the final product. However, the set of activity and their optimization correspond to quality management. In quality assurance, we focus on processes, while in quality control, we focus on procedures. Quality in procedure is guarantee and insurance, and quality in procedure is quality control. Quality in control, where the set and its optimization is quality management, which can be certificated or accredited by ISO standard, for example. Now, let's do a brief review of process-oriented work, which is the basis of competency-based training. The process is a set of tasks that create a flowchart. Procedures are description of service tasks. Protocol are tasks endorsed by an agency or organization. Instructions are description of equipment operation if a clinic or service does not work by processes. It's difficult to train a medical physicist by competencies since procedures and protocols are basically the competencies to be learning. Furthermore, process-oriented work has the advantage of working with quality, reducing costs, and enabling certification and accreditation. As I mentioned it before, process-oriented work consists of processes, procedures, protocols, and instruction. The process is basically a workflow. Procedures, protocols, and instruction are documents detailing step-by-step instructions along with their objectives, scope, responsibility, etc. Now, let's briefly review quality management, assurance, and control, which are covered in the Quattro Quantum and Quadrille audit. Step 1 is the implementation of a standard manual which falls under quality assurance. Step 2 is the implementation of quality control according to protocols. Step 3 is optimization and automation of procedure. Step 4, you would be accrediting the programs. And the final step would be achieve reaccreditation to ensure the long-term maintenance of quality programs. If we focus on the first three steps, we can see that they form the basis of an entire quality-based system, where quality management includes quality assurance and quality assurance include quality controls. In summary, we can see that the foundation of quality control is operational control. Quality assurance is record keeping and traceability, and quality management is based on the optimization and automation of procedures. This presentation will not focus on this type of accreditation. However, it's essential to note that all these characteristics are competencies to be acquired by medical physicists who will be training in the clinical training program. But what is a competency? Competencies are understood as the concatenation of knowledge, not only pragmatic and production-oriented, but also those that articulate a conception of being, knowing how to do, and knowing how to live together. The important thing to highlight is that it's a concatenation of knowledge. In the knowledge society, knowing how to do things is prioritized as an application of the available information. However, not for any purpose, but with the perspective of improving the quality of life for the entire population. Continuing with the definition of competency, in the training of professionals, it is necessary to make methodological, didactic, and attitudinal change that promote participation. For this, there are various ICT, information and communication technologies available, such as Mentimeter, Google Classroom, Chougule, Genially, etc. It is also important to clinical training program students to acquire critical attitude and the ability to respond and act in the face of change. For this purpose, it is ideal to apply a flipped classroom format. But what is the flipped classroom? In a traditional classroom, the teacher lectures and a student listen passively, asking questions at the end of the class. Here is an example of traditional classroom. In contrast, in a flipped classroom, the teacher provides a tutorial or tools and presents a problem, and the students are tasked with creating the lesson content or solving the problem themselves. In the case of clinical training program, the student is given to procedure as to observe how it's performing in the institution and identify possible improvement to the procedure. This is an optimization. Subsequently, the student is asked to provide feedback on the improvement, if any, or an explanation of the procedure, and then perform the procedure independently. This is called rubric assessment. Here is an example of flipped classroom. You can see before the class, in the class, and after the class. Finally, it is important to highlight that both actors, teachers and students, can and should actively engage in the organization and development of educational content. Now, let's take the competency chart by specialty from the Academic Training and Clinical Training Guideline for Medical Physicists in Latin America as an example. This time, we'll use the discipline of nuclear medicine as an example. Now, we ask ourselves, how do I include this responsibility in my training program? How do I divide it into competencies? Similar to example used for radiotherapy, we can divide it into 3 levels or more depending on one's preference. For example, at level 1, there are institutions that only have a gamma camera. At level 2, there are maybe institutions that have a SPECT and perform metabolic therapy. And level 3, there are institutions that have SPECT-CT, PET-CT, perform internal dosimetry, etc. As mentioned earlier, we need to conduct competency-based training that is transversal to all levels. This will also allow us to increase the training level of the clinical training program as the institution grows over time. Now, let's present an example of the experience of Leben Salud on how we organize it in the medical physics residency. For example, the residency program consists of modules which are divided into units and further divided into topics. Since the residencies has components of academic training and supervised clinical training, each topic can have different activities that comprise the competencies to be acquired. Returning to the academic training and clinical training guidelines in Latin America, let's take the competency table for the optimization module in nuclear medicine as an example. Optimization would be the unit. Between the modules, we have the topics. And within these topics, we find different activities. We need to establish the expected outcomes of the competencies, which we'll use to create the rubrics. With this information, we can structure our clinical training program based on competencies in a systematic way. We should focus on developing rubrics for the activities. What is the scope of the competencies? According to the level that I can offer, but with the minimum reference being the academic training and clinical training guideline for medical physicists in Latin America. So, the next question that arises is, how do I evaluate them? And the answer is through rubrics. They can have different formats, but let me present an example where the different activities are listed. And within each activities are the steps or component. In this sense, we can define that each activity can be a procedure or protocol with its different steps. If the student cannot solve any step, the result of the rubrics is 0. If they solve only the first component, they get 33% approximately. If they solve 2 of 3 components, they obtain 66%. And if they complete the activity, they get 100% and move on to another activity until completing the competency. Summarizing, we start to think, what are the formats of the training programs? And what options can I articulate? As mentioned earlier, structured programs have this format, where we can observe the components of theoretical and practical training, and where the modules represent academic subjects. This is the format of an academic program, such as a master's or postgraduate program, but it does not have components of a supervised clinical training program. If we remove the theoretical components and practical assignment components and replace them with active hands-on training, then we will have the following training components and the components of active practice, and we replace them with practical active training. We have the components of active training, the training modules, and therefore a structured program of supervised clinic training. If we add theoretical training to the components of active hands-on training, we have an active theoretical and practical training. With training modules, therefore, we have a clinical residency program, like the one of COI from Leben Salud. Basically, the difference lies in the fact that the theoretical training or academic program is simultaneous with the clinical training, unlike being sequential and in most known formats. This residency system is similar to the medical residencies and is accredited under the medical faculty, following the same format as medical residencies. And now, let's think again and ask ourselves, what options do I have to implement a structured supervised clinic training programs? I will present two options, based on experience of having assisted and another based on my personal implementation experience. For example, option 1, Master Structured Supervised Clinic Training Program or Master in Residence modality. In the case of the Master with a residency modality, the option to simultaneously complete academic training with part of the supervised clinic training will be known. And we have option 2, residency in medical physics, which is an academic and structured supervised clinic training program in residency modality, similar to the physician residencies. In this case, academic training is conducted alongside supervised clinic training in all areas, including nuclear medicine, diagnostic imaging, and radiotherapy. This is based on our experience at the Centro Oncológico Integral of Leben Salud. Let's take a look at the first option, which is the case I have collaborated on with a university in Jamaica that I hope will start soon. It is worth nothing to the structure might have some modification, but I will present the case that I have proposed and collaborate on. Here are some definitions that we will see in the structure or organizational chart. This kind of definition, for example, TTP is a clinical training program, SCTP is a structured clinic training program, and AP is academic program, CTS, clinical training supervisor, MM is nuclear medicine, RT, radiotherapy, and DR is diagnostic and interventional radiology. In this first figure, we see the organizational chart, where we can distinguish at the top the director or main coordinator of the master program in medical physics with a residency modality, which include 3 disciplines. Below on the left, we see the academic program instructor, followed on the right by the administrative support, and then the instructor of the structured supervised clinic training program. In this case, both instructors are very important figures in the SEM. Below the academic program instructor, we can see 2 major branches. On the right are the theoretical classes, and on the left are the laboratories. In the laboratories, practical assignment will be carried out in nuclear medicine, diagnostic and interventional radiology, and radiotherapy, which can be taught at the university or at the healthcare institution. Also, observational visits will be conducted at healthcare institution. To the right and below the instructor, we have supervisors for each area of each healthcare institution. It is important to mention that this project has three important characteristics. One, it is a simultaneous training instead of sequential. Two, it integrates the discipline in nuclear medicine and diagnostic and interventional radiology. Three, it is multicentric with articulation between the university and 4 different healthcare institutions. Now, let's see how the time chart can be configured for this case. According to educational regulation, the master's program should last between 2 years and have between 1,000 and 1,200 hours in total. For this reason, the academic program is divided into 481 hours and the clinical training into 604 hours. However, it can be observed that observational visits are included in the academic program. However, these are also part of the training program since they are an important formative component of the training. This is a characteristic of simultaneity between academic training and clinical training. Finally, we can observe that for administrative and organizational reasons, we can divide the academic training in the first years and the clinical training in the second year. This allows for a new call for the application each year for the master's program. Now, let's look at the interaction chart. The most important aspect is the relationship between the instructor of the academic program and the instructor of the instructor-supervised clinical training program. They coordinate together the component and implementation of the practical assignment. On the other hand, the instructor of the instructor-supervised clinical training program will coordinate with the supervisor of nuclear medicine and diagnostic and interventional radiology for monitoring competencies and their evaluation through rubrics. In turn, the supervisor will coordinate with each other the content, training, and monitoring in a unified manner for each discipline across all participating institutions. Periodically, meeting between the stakeholders should occur where radiotherapy and nuclear medicine and diagnostic imaging supervisor groups should meet for the creation and the periodic update of the supervised clinical training program and clinical observation, competency-based assessment for each level of radiotherapy and nuclear medicine and diagnosis imaging. All of this work should be coordinated by the clinical training program instructor to verify unification of educational criteria. The clinical training program instructor should meet with the academic program instructor to articulate the theoretical contents of the subjects and labs with the observational clinical visits. Next, let's see how to create a Gantt chart. On one side, we have the academic program with its components such as classes, laboratories with practical assignment, and observational visits, which are part academic and part practical. This will be taught in the first year. On the other side, we have the clinical training. This takes place into the second year, and we see the number of hours dedicated to each institution and each discipline. At the halfway point of the master's program, meaning at the end of the first years, the students must choose the discipline to specialize in. One group will undergo the training in nuclear medicine and diagnostic interventional radiology, and the other group in radiotherapy. Now, I am going to comment on some suggestions for the education program with instructor supervised clinical training program component. The internship or clinical training components must be supervised by the professional with experience in the subdiscipline where the student will develop. There should be a structured program of supervised clinical training, where it is clear what competencies the student will acquire at the end of the training. There should be a set of competency-based assessment rubrics for each subdiscipline of medical physics. At the beginning of the course, the student should be aware of what she will acquire in their competency-based training and how the assessment methodology rubrics will be. The anatomy course should have a strong component of cross-sectional anatomy, which is the anatomy that is learning through the diagnostic imaging of CT, MRI, ultrasound, SPECT-CT, PET-CT, etc. It is strongly suggested that it is taught by radiation oncologists, radiologists, and nuclear medicine specialists. It is recommended that about 70% of the theoretical component are taught by medical physicists with active clinical experience that allows easy extrapolation for theoretical content to hospital practice. It is an important recommendation that the education program with structured supervised clinical training program is articulated with the Ministry of Health and Education, recognizing the medical physicist as a health professional who contribute to the optimization of the quality of diagnosis and treatment, and the use of theoretic, technological, and human resources. With the faculty and or University of Medicine, because it is a discipline that is clearly interdisciplinary, where the physicists work together with radiation oncology, radiologists, and nuclear medicine specialists. Continues with articulation with institution, with the hospital and or health institution, where the observational visits and clinical training will take place. We other institutions at international level, which allow professional growth of their students through rotation and or interaction with other education programs and or medical physics residencies of reference. These articulations should be through educational and specific framework agreements, such as rotation and specific academic agreements. Regarding harmonization and international recognition, we can consider that all the recommendations above will help to the health institution to achieve future IOMP accreditation. The IOMP follow IAA recommendation. Its accreditation not only allows its international recognition, but also harmonizes its educational content with other reference training programs, allowing greater access to benefits and interest from new students from all over the world. Now, I'm going to comment on the importance of heavy medical physics in Latin America. Latin America has sufficient technology and training professionals to initiate the first steps of a structured supervised clinic training programs. Medical physics professionals have the task of optimizing technological and human resource through the implementation of new diagnostic and treatment techniques by reducing treatment times, increasing accessibility, reducing those in nuclear medicine and diagnosis imaging, and increasing imaging quality, reducing cost by increasing the useful life of equipment and consumables, etc. But is it necessary to have an academic program in order to carry out a structured supervised clinical training program? No, not at all. Institutions that have clinically qualified medical physics professionals can create the programs and even collaborate with other institutions to develop a joint program. And how would the Gantt chart be modified if we only have clinical training? Basically, we need to do is incorporate observational visits into the program. One option is to add the hours to the training, or incorporate them before the active training. Now, I will tell you about the modality of the medical physics residency at the Centro Oncológico Integral of Leben Salud in Patagonia, Argentina. This would be the option 2 that I present. The main characteristic is that it follows the same format as medical residencies. This means that it lasts 4 years and includes simultaneously academic and supervised clinic training and supervised clinic training. During the first 3 years, medical physicists are training in all 3 disciplines of medical physics simultaneously. Then, in the last year, they choose between nuclear medicine and diagnostic radiology or radiotherapy. The 4th year is necessary to obtain the permit from the Nuclear Regulatory Authority of Argentina and it reports training in advanced techniques such as TBI, radiosurgery in radiotherapy, and diagnosis in nuclear medicine. Now, I will tell you what motivates us to face this great challenge. In Latin America, there are several education institutions that offer theoretical training in medical physics, but none of them contemplate their subsequent structured clinical training. After the theoretical training, the students must find by themselves where they continue their clinical practice, which is often very difficult, as only single training areas are normally offered, radiotherapy or nuclear medicine or diagnostic imaging. Because of these difficulties, Fundación Médica Río Negro y Neuquén and the Universidad Nacional del Comahue has implemented a residency in medical physics, being the first in Argentina created by university in the Centro Oncológico Integral. Let's start with where COI is located. The residencies in medical physics of the Fundación Médica Río Negro y Neuquén, which belongs to the group of health institutions of Leben Salud, is located in the Latin America continent, exactly in the northern Patagonia of Argentina. Patagonia is a beautiful region where apples, pears, cherry are grown on the vineyards of some of the best wine in the world are found. But it's also the area of Vaca Muerta, the largest oil field in the region, with a unique economic ground and a population ground that doubles every 10 years. The COI is located in the city of Neuquén, in the province of Neuquén, and it is divided by a river from the province of Río Negro. And it collaborates closely with 2 other main clinics, Clínica de Imágenes and Fundación Médica de Río Negro y Neuquén. Next, I will show the Centro Oncológico Integral, where the main COI is in Neuquén, but there are branches in the city of Chipoleti and Roca. In all these centers, there are radiotherapy service where medical physics students can train. But we also have other healthcare institutions spread throughout northern Patagonia, Argentina, which allows medical physicists to train in the other necessary competencies for the discipline of nuclear medicine and diagnostic and interventional radiology. The residence was created following the recommendation of the AAEA through its technical document, such as Human Health Report number 1, where the duration of 3 years is recommended and that it contains all 3 disciplines in an integrated manner throughout the residence. Human Health Report number 25 was used as a basis to determine the scope and the limitation by guiding the content that should exist in the home discipline. For the specific content, technical documents 56, 37, 47, and 50 were used as theoretical basis and practical guidelines. The Residency in Medical Physics project was presented in several undergraduate degrees. In the first place, it was tried through the Bioengineering Physics degree course. But both careers do not have the structure of a residence in any institution. For this reason, it was decided to contact the Faculty of Medicine of the National University of Comahue, which has a manual for accreditation of residents, where priorities are given to the new residents related to medicine. The Argentine educational regulatory framework is complex, where bioengineering and physics careers don't have residencies. On the other hand, medical residencies do have this regulatory framework which is governed by the regulation of the Faculty of Medicine of the national universities recognized by the Ministry of Education and Health, Ministry of the Nation. On the other hand, there are medical specialties, masters and PhD, which certification amounts to the level of the Ministry of Education and CONIAU directly. CONIAU is the National Commission for University Evaluation and Accreditation, whose institutional mission is to ensure and improve the quality of university career and institution, which operate in the Argentine university system through activities of evaluation and accreditation of the quality of university education. After having recognized the residency, it is possible to create the specialty or master or PhD, fulfilling the requirements that the Ministry of Education and Health and CONIAU requires. The specialty being recognized by CONIAU allows to approval with the other specialties around the world that have a similar accreditation and are under the approval agreement. On the other hand, in Argentina, it is also necessary, in order to practice as a professional, the recognition of theoretical and practical training by the Nuclear Regulatory Authority in Argentina. This authority depends directly on the presidency of the nation and has its individual requirements to recognize the theoretical and/or practical training of the residencies in medical physics. It's important to mention that the residency serves as the perfect pivot to be accredited as a specialty master degree or even a doctorate, as it is in the United States. Additionally, it serves as the link to the Nuclear Regulatory Authority that grants individual license to work in radiotherapy and nuclear medicine. Lastly, it serves as the connection with the Ministry of Health, allowing for create recognition of medical physicists as healthcare professionals. Therefore, the structure and content were complemented according to the requirement of the National University of Comahue being able to accredit the residencies in medical physics. Likewise, the theoretical training requirement established by the Nuclear Regulatory Authority of Argentina for the recognition as a training career for obtaining individual license as a specialist in radiation therapy, physics, and/or nuclear medicine were complemented and present. In diagnostic imaging, nuclear medicine, and radiotherapy, the residencies has direct collaboration with different companies, where students can learn with more than 35 high-tech equipment and specialized software in post-processing and quality control. We can cite as an example the PET-CT, SPECT-CT, and MRI of Tesla equipment, so necessary for the recognition of the training of medical physics in nuclear medicine. One of the fundamental pillars of all training, both in treatment and in the diagnosis, are the quality control of all the equipment. Through a collaboration training, the quality control program of all areas be implemented digitally and paperless, allowing students to learn, practice, and innovate constantly. Now, we show you our Gantt chart for our residencies program with components of academic training and supervised clinical training. Since the diagram is so complex and large, I create a short video where you can observe the schedule and structure. The first part corresponds to the academic program, which is included in the first 3 years of the residencies. In the 4th year, it is exclusive dedicated to supervised clinic training with very specific topics and advanced techniques. We also display the distribution of our mandatory seminars that are required and held at the medical school for both physicians and medical physics. It's important to know that supervised clinical training is concurrent or simultaneously with academic training. This is a characteristic of the Leben Salud residency that differs from the traditional sequential training method for medical physicists. We believe that these characteristics enhance professional training significantly because professionals can see theoretical concepts being applied in the clinic at the same time they learn them. As a result, we can present that after the accreditation by the National University of Comahue, we were able to open the call to graduates of the bioengineering career, bachelor degrees in medical physics and physics among others. The entrants are the same as those accepted by the Autoridad Regulatoria Nuclear Regulatory Authority in English of Argentina. The training includes the 3 areas recommended by the IAEA: radiation therapy, nuclear medicine, and radiodiagnosis. Finally, it is important to mention that the direction is given by who talked, Magister Ricardo Ruggeri, who speak then to coordinator and advisor Graciela Vélez, with great experience and prestige of the international level, and the general and medical director of the clinic, Alejandro Schroeder. The union of the entrance requirement of the Faculty of Medicine of the National University of Comahue and of the Nuclear Regulatory Authority for the entrance requirement for the new residents. As final result, we can mention that the residency is composed of 3 current years of duration that include theory and practice. 2 new students per year enter with a scholarship between $650 to $950. As extra benefits, residents have social security, lunch, personal accident safety, and malpractice insurance. With all these conditions, we already have 5 current residents. And finally, the most significant achievement was the accreditation granted by the IOMP. Accreditation was achieved through an audit conducted by expert Rodolfo Alfonso and Laura Padilla, both highly esteemed doctors with extensive experience and international recognition in medical physics and education. Accreditation was obtained not only for the academic training, but also for the residency program in both radiotherapy and nuclear medicine and diagnostic and interventional radiology, with full accreditation status. This made us to the first in the world with an accredited structured supervised clinic training program. The second achievement for Latin America was thanks to the institution GURBE in Venezuela, which obtained IOMP accredited. To conclude, it is important to note that in our case, achieving the implementation of the residency program and its accreditation by the IOMP was the result of enormous teamwork at COI. It involved not only medical physicists, but also active participation from doctors, technicians, administrators, nurses, and other professionals and collaborators within the institution. Above all, I want to emphasize that all of this was made possible thanks to the director of the Leben Salud, who trusts and believes in the importance of the medical physicist as a healthcare professional. They recognize that the residency program was the path to providing quality patient care through education. To conclude, we can mention the following conclusions. Latin America has a large number of high-quality academic programs that are well aligned with the recommendation of the IAEA, but there are very few structured supervised training programs. Additionally, the Latin America region boasts professionals with very high clinical expertise and strong educational capabilities who could establish structured supervised clinical training programs within their institution. Moreover, the implementation of structured supervised clinical training programs in various institutions will enable a training program that is harmonized with the IAEA and connected with other institutions across Latin America and the world. Lastly, implementing an structured supervised clinical training program will provide access to prestigious accreditation such as that offered by the IOMP. As a summary of concepts, we can mention that the most important aspect for implementing a structured supervised clinical training program is harmonization with the recommendation of the IAEA in education. The collaboration between different local and international institutions and paving the way to create the structured supervised clinic training program by a prestigious international organization such as the IOMP. Finally, we invite you to participate in the 10th Latin America Congress of Medical Physics, which will take place from March 9 to 12, 2025 in Antigua, Guatemala, under the theme Conquering the Future of Medical Physics. In Spanish, Conquistando el Futuro de la Física Médica. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. You can see my QR for WhatsApp and LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Ricardo Ruggeri, for giving extensive overview of supervised structural clinical training program. And it is one of the important training programs in Latin America, and which is IOMP accredited. You talked about how to establish the structured supervised clinical program, equipment required, human resources, a document you required, and also how to assess the knowledge, skill, competency, and also you talked about the flipped classroom learning, a very important things you have pointed out, and the document from IAEA and IOMP which are available. Now, there are few questions. I will take up few of them. And then the first question is, do you consider feasible implementing the Institute-Stable Professional Activities (EPA) approach to the clinical training programs for medical physics as they are being implemented in several medical residency approaches?
Yes, I completely agree with this. I believe that this question is from Rodolfo Alfonso. It's a good question. I believe that rotation in different kind of structured supervised clinic training program between different institutions on research seminars and other kind of activities, I believe that is really, really useful for the student. Yes, I agree with this.
Another question from Rodolfo is this, that as you know, ICTP conducts post-MSc Masters in Medical Physics program, which is one full year academic and one full year clinical program in radiotherapy. And he is asking, will it not be useful for Latin America and Africa to replicate this thing? Because the document which has been signed with ALFIM and AFRA IAEA says that 1 year residency to enhance the capabilities is enough in Latin America and all. So can you suggest this program developed by ICTP IAEA can be replicated? But the only thing is that this is a post-MSc program.
Yeah, I don't know if I can reply this kind of question because I don't know the program of ICTP, no, and depend on the quality or the qualified institution that is necessary to training the student. I believe that this question is for other person.
Okay. But I think it can be because it's a post-MSc, but 1 year academic and 1 year full clinical training program. And most of the students which are joining ICTP are from Africa and Latin America only, and they're coming back to the country. So that program can be replicated there. Now, another question is there. Is there any mandatory requirement of clinically qualified medical physics in radio diagnosis as far as the national laws are considered, that you must have services of clinically qualified medical physicists in diagnostic radiology or interventional radiology in Latin America or in Argentina?
For example, in Argentina, it's not mandatory to be a qualified medical physicist in radiology. This is a big problem, no? For example, in nuclear medicine, it's only necessary for PET CT, but it's not necessary for PET CT or gamma camera, for example. I believe that we need to, for example, in Argentina, we need to improve our norms or our laws about this, because the kind of equipment is not the same, the radiation is not the same, the optimization of quality management program now is really important, not only for to improve the quality of images. It's really important to reduce the dose of the patient and optimize the service. That I told about this, and I believe that in Latin America, we need to improve the presentation of the medical physics in radiology and nuclear medicine.
But for radiation oncology in radiotherapy, clinically qualified competent medical physicists is must. It is a mandatory requirement.
Yes, it's a mandatory. Commonly, the law in different kind of countries in Latin America is different, but it's really, really common, and it's mandatory.
Okay. And there is another question from Carrie Boras. As the practice of radio theragonistic increases, are there any plans to offer hybrid theoretical and practical training in radiotherapy and nuclear medicine diagnostic radiology? Many therapy techniques may involve both external beam therapy and radionuclide therapy.
Oh, good question, from Caribotas. Always, always.
Yeah.
In our case, we include in this case, no, in our residency, because we are working with this kind of integral therapy, no, between, for example, now there are different kind of protocols, such as lunar protocols, that is an integral therapy between the diagnosis with nuclear medicine and radiotherapy. We are working now, we are learning now with the student, and we believe that is really, really the future. I agree with Gary.
Because the imaging procedures are increasing and they are part and parcel of radiation oncology today, modern radiation oncology. So the part of diagnostic and imaging and even nuclear medicine is very important to work in radiotherapy. Another question is from Nathalie on the same way. Means you are giving a scholarship for residency program. Am I right?
Yes.
2 scholarships. Now she's asking that this payment can be received during the work, means residency, the structured supervised clinical training program can be done during even your employment. Is it possible?
Yes, in our case, for example, it's included in the salary. It's included. It's important to transmit the knowledge, no, between different, not only between the residents. It's really important to transmit the knowledge of the physicist staff to the residency. It's part of our jobs. It's included.
And one more comment from Vélez is that in Argentina, residency is a mixed academic plus clinical training. That's a 4 years what we have seen it. But in other countries, residency refers to the clinical training. That is means after academic program, you have to undergo a residency program of in Latin America 1 year, and other countries it is 2 years. But in Argentina, it's a combined program.
Yes, simultaneously. Yes, our program is simultaneously, such as USA, there are similar structure.
And you also mentioned very rightly that there has to be interaction between the academic program and supervised structured clinical program. So it has to have a good interaction and implementation. So there are many questions, but we are running out of time. This was the 4th webinar of the IMPW, and almost about 700 delegates participated in this program, and very nicely you have covered the requirement and the case study of your place, how you have implemented this. Thank you very much for sparing the time. Thanks to John Damelicus, the president, for giving me the opportunity, and I will request him to speak as a president from IOMP.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Ricardo, for your excellent presentation. Thank you, Arun, for coordinating this this webinar. Well, I have two short comments, not as an IOMP president, but as in my capacity as a professor, of a university professor. I have a lot of experience because of my age, in fact, after so many years. So two short comments. One is related, you said about intrustable professional activities, very important question. And it is really interesting. Can we implement the intrustable professional activities in medical physics? Implementing that approach in our clinical training programs is feasible. However, it requires, in my opinion, adaptation to the specific needs of our field, because medical physics involves complex tasks related to equipment calibration, quality assurance, radiation safety. So these activities must be structured in such a way to, let's say, encompass these responsibilities. Of course, medical physics has similarities with clinical medicine, so theoretically we can this implementation is feasible. But again, we have unique elements, a strong focus on technology. And these activities would need to reflect these aspects. And another comment, AI can play a major role, perhaps plays or will play in the near future a very important role in our education and training. Very fast, two examples, possible examples: virtual assistants, AI-based virtual assistants can provide on-demand, personalized support. However, these tools can, the key point is reliability. We need to train these assistants, these bots, with reliable material. And another point, which is, I think, is related to Kari's question, simulation-based training on expensive equipment like MRI, like hybrid imaging, can offer us a cost-effective way to develop our skills. So AI-based simulators can replicate the characteristics of MRI, and this will allow trainees to practice without the need for expensive equipment. Accessibility, which is a big problem. Accessibility to these equipment, which is very expensive, and trainees have always a problem to find time to sit in the console, in the real environment, and get some training and knowledge. That's all from me. Again, greetings to Latin America colleagues, and big thank you to all of you.
Almost 700 participants are there across the globe. IOMP Accreditation Board is helping to accredit the residency program, medical education program, and hope more and more institutions and universities will get their programs accredited. Any kind of support for establishing can be given from the IOMP Accreditation Board. So once again, I thank IOMP President, the Magdalena, for the nice background work and all the help, and Ricardo, Ruggeri for excellent talk, and all the participants. Thank you very much. We see you tomorrow again for the last webinar. Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.